So I actually thought this one was a little bit obvious, but there was a lot of people being like, hey, so he's gonna do Mandricardo for the Rider next, right? And I was like, huh. I guess I could have done Mandricardo, but I already had my heart set on doing Ushi because how could I not want to do Ushi? Not only was she a tremendous help for me starting the game out when I started the NA version of the game, but when I was doing the JP version of the game when I was starting out over there, she was also insanely useful to me over there. Not to mention the new costume also does her some really nice wonders, so I was like, you know what, I gotta talk about the girl Ushi. Before things start to get a little crazy over on JP, this should be going up on Tuesday, which means Wednesday's video is probably going to be about whatever Insano Servant is going to be dropping over there. But before we actually dive in and start talking about Ushiwakamaru and how good she is and why you need to level her up right now, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for daily FGO content, and if you want to see me play FGO live, I do that every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. Although I did miss Monday because for whatever reason, I woke up and thought it was Sunday, just one of those days, you know? However, with all that being said, let's go ahead and start diving into Ushi, starting off with her hits. And again, you guys know the deal. A lot of these low rarity servants, especially the year 1 ones, don't exactly have the best hits. I mean, she has really high NP gain at 0.87%, meaning if you're able to crit on the arts and kind of even the quick cards, because she is a quick servant and so you're probably using her with like Scotty and such, you can get some decent refund back. Nothing super insane, but definitely enough to keep her in the fight and allow her to fire her NP a few times. Although she's gotten a couple of buffs over the years that have also really helped her out with that. So you really shouldn't struggle too much. It's just like maybe if you don't have enough stars going around, then you might struggle just a bit. I mean, her own natural star gen is only 9.1%, but any stars that you do generate are going to be really easy for Ushi to actually absorb into herself because as a rider, her natural star weight is insanely high. So she doesn't really need like a star weight skill because she kind of just does that naturally. She also has a really nice riding passive that's going to be giving her a passive 11% quick buff. So basically just always treat it as though she's got that small quick performance built into her kit, and that any other quick buffs that she might get, for instance on her first skill, which we'll just move into right now, are just added into that. So this skill is actually buffing the entire party's NP generation rate by 20% for 3 turns, and then giving herself a 20% quick buff for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. But again, this is actually really just going to be a 31% quick buff because same buff types actually add into each other, and she does have that passive 11%, well, on her passive skills. And this is one of those skills that anytime you see it's available, you want to have it up at all times because the quick buff is really going to help out her NP damage, it's going to buff the damage of her quick cards, and it's going to buff the NP gain rate of her quick cards as well. So whenever you fire her NP, which granted only has 1 hit, or you have her 2 quick cards, whatever little NP gain you can get off of those hits is going to be boosted a little bit. And with lower hits, you're going to want every little bit that you can get. The other nice thing though is that since she's able to buff the party's NP generation rate, any different casters that you're using with her are going to really benefit off this. So if you're using anybody from Waiver to Original Scotty to Ruler Scotty, anyone like that is really going to appreciate something like this because all of them have really strong NPs. Now, obviously, you could use her in like a double DPS type of setup. I mean, Ruler Scotty does kind of enable that because she's also a DPS if you want to use her in that avenue. But even if you want to use her with, like, say, an AoE, I have no idea if you want to do, like, Ushi plus Atalanta for some reason. For whatever reason, you need the both of them, right? This is going to help your other teammates actually get to their NP, which is, like, the most important thing in the game. The only thing is that, like, the actual percentage of it is a little bit low, but still, overall, as an introductory skill, it's very, very strong for her. Her second skill also, thank God, got buffed from just being kind of a mid-charisma to actually being really strong. So it's still technically a charisma, but it got bumped up to a 20% attack buff to the entire party for 3 turns, while also giving herself a 50% crit damage buff for 3 turns, and also bombing 20 stars on the field. This is insanely good because, again, not only did they modernize that attack buff, because a lot of older charismas are like 16% or like 13.5%. Like, they're all these like weird numbers. It's good that this is just kind of modernized up to 20%. By the way, that attack buff will multiply into her quick buff that she has on her first skill to give her even more damage. It's why Ushi just does really good, solid, consistent damage, just because she can give herself a free double buff essentially for 3 turns. But then that 50% crit damage buff is the same buff that you're going to get from Waiver, so it's going to give those cards a little bit of bite to them. especially if you're using it on a turn that like you happen to have a Scotty quick crit ready to go, or if you have Ruler Scotty, a Buster crit ready to go, because even though she doesn't have like the double Buster, double quick deck, she still does have that one Buster card and could still make use of that Buster crit every now and then if you're using her with Ruler Scotty. And well, the Star Bomb is really good because, as we talked about earlier, doesn't really have super high hits, natural star generation rate's not super high, so they gave her the ability to bomb 20 stars for herself, and overall it's just a very, very solid skill. Finally, there's her third skill, which is a very unique dodge skill. So a lot of the times you'll have like the Eye of the Mind that either gives you the defense buff or one that gives you the crit buff. For Ushi, it actually gives her the dodge for the turn, but then it gives her 100% crit star generation rate for that turn. That way she can kind of drop some stars. Again, really hard to take advantage of it with the lower hits, but because she has such low hits, they actually decided to just give her the 100% star gen buff, and it can allow her to drop a fair bit of stars, especially in conjunction with her second skill. And overall, after all the buffs that she's received, she actually has a pretty decent, I would say, modern kit or modern-esque kit that allows her to be a viable single target rider. Unfortunately, her NP is kind of lacking a little bit. They already buffed it, although with someone like Vlad running around, we know that they'll buff NPs numerous times, so maybe they'll come back and buff this again, because really the only thing she got was the higher damage scaling from a buffed NP, because they also give her the increased star gen buff that's either 50 to 90% depending on your overcharge level that'll last for 3 turns. So you could maybe say that like with her third skill and maybe firing this NP a few times, you could really make her super Insano style star gen lady, but again, because her natural hits are really low, it's going to be really hard to actually get to that point. But overall, she's got a very, very solid kit. They've kind of addressed all the issues that kind of are there in Ushi's kit. Not very good at generating stars. We gave her like 3 different star gen buffs. One of those being just a direct star bomb, right? Which is really, really useful. We gave her the ability to double buff herself. That means that her damage is always going to be pretty decent. She has survivability. She has a little bit of party utility in the fact that like if you want to use her as like a secondary DPS alongside somebody else, she can not only give them like a nice little attack buff and an NP gain buff as well. And it just makes her like a very solid servant to use. Not a whole lot of flaws in her kit, right? They still could maybe, I don't know, like throw obviously things like a battery her way, or something that I've been clamoring for, go back to a lot of these older servants and actually like raise their hits. Like, can you imagine if they were just like, you know what, Ushi now has like a 9-hit NP or something, or we just buffed those quick cards to 3 hits? Things would start to get really insane really, really quickly, but that's like one of the easiest ways to like buff an older servant, is just give them actual hits. But she doesn't have any special damage mods or anything, but she's still able to compete as a very solid single target rider just because her damage is just very, very solid. She's setting out on a job to try to loop her NP as much as possible and smack the enemy in the face as much as possible, and she does a very, very good job at doing that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm pretty sure everybody here has probably used Ushi at some point, if not grailed her already, because she is kind of like your standard .jpeg default go-to rider. Unless maybe you started later on in the game and you started using Mandricardo, but let's be honest, even if you were using him, you probably leveled up Ushi as well. But again, thoughts in the comments down below. I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video, when this should be going up on Tuesday, I believe. We can finally see what this new hype servant is all about. But again, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.